Ravish. Ravish Momin. Could you tell me a little about your name, Ravish?
It's
Momin?
Ravish. It's
Oh,
actually
Ravish.
Persian, as you know. My father actually named me after, I think it's a 16th century Persian poet, and I could be wrong about that century. Ravish Sadiqi. And does that name ring a bell for you?
No.
Okay.
Sorry. Of course. I will check it out.
Yeah, check it out. So my father, wanted me to be a poet. And in our culture, obviously, as in a lot of Asian and Middle Eastern cultures, the names are very auspicious, and you just don't, open up a book and just pick a name. So they wanted me to be something artistic. And Ravish actually means Ra, like Sun Ra. Ra means sun. And Ravish has something to do with, I believe, something that is orbiting around the sun, something that's out there.
Okay.
I'm like, yeah, great name, Dad. So that's the roots of my name. So it's a Persian origin. It's not Indian. The thing is, like, people think it's Indian because a lot of Indian names are like Harish, Manish, Satish, Ramesh. So people always call me Ravish because it sounds like it's an Indian name.
But then you must be...
It's Persian.
Your family's then from northern India, right?
Oh yeah, we're from South India, but I was raised Muslim, so it's actually a Muslim. So my last name is Momin.
So when did you immigrate to New York?
In 1989. We lived like a lot of different places before we came here. Right before I came to the States, I was in Bahrain. State of the current unrest. Yeah, I lived in Bahrain for.
So you were born
in India.
What?
In South India, in Hyderabad. And then we moved around a little bit as a little kid. I forget exactly all where, but and then I remember being in Bahrain for about 3-4 years.
And from what age?
Till I was from about like 11 to 14 or something like that. But I remember starting high school here when I was 14. So,
okay.
Yeah, in like United States and Jersey. So yeah. But when we're in Bahrain is pretty modern, and we were learning in a British school system, so it's like we were pretty much up to speed with living in the West, so it was like a great transition from coming from India to America. It wasn't just like complete culture shock, because Bahrain is a very modern place. I was there in the late 80s, and I loved it, but I was also a little child, and I didn't understand anything about politics and the whole monarchy and all that. That's just now blowing up, and I have very fond memories of living in Bahrain, but that's a little bit of the nutshell.
Okay, so going through your background in your webpage, which again,
glad you did the work. It's amazing.
Ravish Momin started writing poetry when he was 8 years. Was it in Bahrain?
That was actually in India. I was still in India.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Yeah.
What kind of poetry?
Just poems, poems about life, your parents, and reflecting on things around you. I kept them. I still have them somewhere locked away. But it was just, my mom was an English teacher.
So you wrote them in English?
Yeah. So my mom was an English teacher, so immediately that was a great way for me to practice my English and also to just start writing about things, It was very much about like just animals and creatures and my parents and mountains, and it was. And then I look back, I was like, I can't believe I was writing about that when I was 8 years old,
Were you the only child?
No, I have a brother.
Was he a poet too?
No. Very different. More like extrovert, more into sports and just physical things. I was more like, introverted into like abstract things and poems and art and things like that, So completely different.
So when did you get in touch then with music?
Music came much later, actually. That's the thing. I didn't start playing music till I was 18. So yeah. And again, I had all of these other creative influences, like poetry and being interested in all these other creative things. But the thing is, as you know, like when you're growing up in all these places, I was absorbing all these rhythms and cultures, and not really thinking about it. But when I came to the U.S., it was the first time someone actually shoved a drum in my face. I was like, here, play. And it was actually, I started playing drums, it's very interesting, going back to politics, during the 1991 Gulf War, during the first U.S. invasion of Kuwait. And I was part of a hippie drum circle because I was very much against the war. And having visited these places in the Middle East and having lived in Bahrain and having been to Saudi and Doha and Qatar and all those places, I knew about that culture. And I wanted to share my personal insights into what that was about. And that's how I started playing drums, you know. So it was completely random. But then all these rhythms that I had been absorbing in India, and I had a famous uncle, not a famous uncle, a friend of my uncle, who was a great Bakhawaj player. The Bakhawaj is a sideways drum. It's played like this. It's a
Yes.
North Indian drum. And his name was Pandit Arjun Sejwal. And he used to come to our house. And he used to just sit there, and for hours he would just go, so he would sing all these things. And you know what? At the time, I just thought it was like so funny and sounded so silly. But then as I got older, I started to remember these rhythms, and they just started to like, kind of like come out.
Could you play one of those rhythms?
What's that? Sure.
Of
There's a
that
simple rhythm, like we're just called Kerwa, which is like a very common folk rhythm. It's like Dhagin, Tinnaga, Dinna, Dhagin, Tinnaga, Dinna, Dhagin, Tinnaga, Dinna, Dha. So then I started to like take a simple rhythm like that and then put it on the drums. Something like that, you know. I just like take this, you know, and kind of like put it on the drum set. So fast forward to the present, that's kind of what I do.
So, so as a musician, you are also aware of political and social issues around you?
That's how I got into it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, yeah. Because for me, like I said, there's no way for me to separate the two. I started drumming only because of the 1991 U.S. invasion of Kuwait, and being involved in these drum circles or whatever it was, whatever you might want to say about it being like, you know, superficial or hippy-dippy or whatever. For me, it was very meaningful, and the drumming was a powerful way to bring the people together and to make a common voice, you know. And from then on, obviously, you know, I got deeper. And then I went to Jim DeSpirito, who was a primary student of Ustad Zakir Hussain. And so I started studying with Jim, and he was studying like Zakir Ji for a long time. So I started studying tabla right away. And then I got deeper into all the other things that came later. You know, but absolutely, it was like that political awareness, that sense of like social responsibility, and realizing, even without knowing it, that music has to do something with change on any level, personal change or social change, and great music inspires change, and I believe that, you know. I don't believe in carrying a banner with me behind my head all the time, but it's just in the way you play and what you play, you know. So that's it.
So so of course then you are also aware that even being an American, you have your Indian roots, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So
yeah.
you said in your bio that even though his ideas are fundamentally seated in the Indian musical traditions, so it sounds like even the way you played here that basically you have your basis is your type of Indian music plus other things.
Because the thing was, you know, when I came to jazz, you know, I started to try to just play swing and, you know, do those jazzy things, and it would just come out like sounding different, you know. So, and again, I mean, there are great drummers like Dan Weiss, you know, who do great things, having very specifically studied tabla and doing very exact, precise things with those rhythms. But for me, it wasn't like that. I want to make that clear. It was about absorbing the entire culture. I grew up in Bombay. I grew up with folk rhythms, with Bollywood rhythms, with classical rhythms and melodies and all of this. And it was, for me, a very organic process of how my brain distills all those things. So I'm not here to tell you like, so this is from North Indian music and I'm going to play this precise thing and from the tabla. It was not like that. It was more about like, I heard these rhythms, you know, like a simple thing was like these fishermen would go chanting to the ocean and sing the fishermen songs, and then the simple rhythm was like Murli Manohar Mohan Krishna Hari Om. 1 ta 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 ta. 1 2
Can you play
3
that?
3 4 5. So that's just my way of taking like a simple chant and making it into something different.